So I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 3 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Pursuant to Standing Order 108-2, the committee is continuing its study of the Emissions Reduction Fund onshore program. Today will be our second and final meeting to hear from witnesses on this study. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of November 25th, 2021. Members are attending in person in the room or remotely using the Zoom application. Please note that the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entire committee. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all participants that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. Today's proceedings will be televised and also made available via the House of Commons website. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from public health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on October 19th, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, the following is recommended for all those attending the meeting in person. Anyone with symptoms should participate by Zoom and not attend the meeting in person. Everyone must maintain 2-meter physical distancing, whether seated or standing. Non-medical masks are required to be worn in committee rooms and may only be removed when the member is seated in their place during the meeting and is speaking. However, it is strongly recommended that members wear their masks at all times, including when seated. Non-medical masks are available in the room and they provide better clarity over cloth masks with respect to the interpreters being able to hear our conversations or our interventions. Everyone present must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the hand sanitizer at the room entrance. Committee rooms are cleaned before and after each meeting. To maintain this, everyone is encouraged to clean surfaces such as the desk, chair, and microphone with the provided disinfectant wipes when vacating or taking a seat. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank the members in advance for their cooperation. To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few quick rules to follow. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either English, French, or Floor. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. And I'd ask all witnesses and our members when speaking to allow time for our translators to keep up with what you're saying, so don't go too quickly. For the members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and the clerk and I will do our best to keep track of the speaking order. For the members on Zoom, please use the raise hand function and you'll be placed in order. As I'm sure you can all appreciate, it can sometimes be challenging when members raise their hands both in the room and on Zoom, so the clerk and I will manage the speaking order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding in this regard. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on Zoom, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. For members in the room, your microphone will be controlled as usual by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. When you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. And with that, I'm ready to move right into our first panel. And this is an exciting day to have our minister and departmental officials here so early on in our study. And so welcome Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Member of Parliament and Minister of Natural Resources. Joining the minister, we have from the Department of Natural Resources, Molly Johnson, Assistant Deputy Minister, Low Carbon Energy Sector, Debbie Scharf, Director General, Clean Fuels Branch, and Michael Layer, Program Manager, Clean Air and Energy Research. I'd now like to welcome the Minister of Natural Resources, the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, along with officials who will be with us for the first hour. We'll then proceed with the second panel of witnesses for the second hour of today's meeting starting at 4:30. Minister Wilkinson, you may now proceed with your 5-minute opening statement before we move to questions and answers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee for the invitation to be with you today. L'économie mondiale change et elle change.
The global economy is changing rapidly, and it's changing largely because climate change demands it and markets are responding.
Has to interpret and react to changes in the business environment. Countries, to sustain and enhance their prosperity, must also be capable of thoughtful response and action. This means that we must focus on actions to mitigate climate change while ensuring that there are economic opportunities in all parts of the country. The Emission Reduction Fund's onshore program was designed as a COVID support program to contribute to both of these objectives. In 2020, due to COVID, the oil and gas sector faced record low prices that created significant financial strain and threatened tens of thousands of jobs. The Emission Reduction Fund was designed as a targeted COVID emergency support program that had two key objectives: maintain jobs for oil and gas workers in Canada at a time of record low oil prices, and ensure that work continued on reducing methane emissions at a time when emissions reduction would not be high on the agenda of firms whose finances were being stretched. The program made significant progress on both of these objectives. 99% of recipient companies were small and medium-sized enterprises. The program has been praised by mayors of communities like Estevan, Saskatchewan, Brandon, Manitoba, and Slave Lake, Alberta, for the jobs saved within mostly small and medium-sized firms. Et nous estimons qu'en
We estimate that a year after completion, these projects will reduce 4.7 megatons of CO2 equivalent, and that's like taking 1 million cars off the road. So this program has been explicitly set up as a COVID-19 support measure, and it was a program that was supported not only by the sector but also by a number of thoughtful environmental organizations.
The fund as one of the few programs in the world that confronted the health crisis, created jobs, and contributed meaningfully to reducing emissions. The David Suzuki Foundation said that the program will achieve outcomes that go beyond the methane regulations, and that 97% were achieved at a cost below $20 a ton, something that they said, and I quote, was a notable achievement. Aujourd'hui, la crise économique.
Today, the oil and gas industry's acute economic crisis of 2020 has passed, but the climate crisis remains. And so we've amended the programme to ensure that we take account of this situation. In reevaluating this programme, we've taken into consideration the feedback presented by the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development.
For the third intake of the ERF, changes that will continue to accelerate the reduction of methane emissions. Going forward, the fund will only support projects that fully eliminate methane emissions from existing sources in oil and gas operations. Current Canadian regulations do not require zero venting or flaring from existing sources, so these projects will achieve additional emissions reductions. The fund will apply strengthened criteria to ensure value for money in line with the Commissioner's recommendations. We will implement a cost per ton threshold. We will require applicants to demonstrate that the project could not move forward without this funding, and we will determine the minimum funding required. And finally, the fund will enhance the visibility of GHG emissions reductions by providing greater transparency on the emissions that are counted per project. We will engage an ISO certified contractor to review and verify the program's methodology for assessing GHG reductions, and we will require applicants to submit 2 GHG emission reduction plans to confirm the incrementality of the reductions. These changes will enable high-impact methane reduction projects for Canada and will help drive Canada towards achieving its target of 40 to 45% reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. Encore une fois, je vous remercie de...
Once again, I'd like to thank you for having invited me here today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Minister, for your opening statements. And below the 5-minute times allotted, so that's fantastic. We can get right into some questioning. I should have mentioned we're going to use the timekeeping system that we used last time. I'll give you a yellow card when there's 30 seconds left, red card when your time's up. Don't stop mid-sentence, but finish your thoughts, and then we'll move on to the next round of questioning. So from the Conservatives, Mr. Malillo has the first round of questions for 6 minutes. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank the Minister for making the time to join our committee today. I appreciate that. Minister, you speak of the transparency that this program provides. However, a report by the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development found that Natural Resources Canada overestimated the reductions in greenhouse gas emissions that it expected under the onshore program. So a question to you, Minister. Do you believe that this overestimation was a result of human error, or was it deliberately misstated?
The discussion with the Commissioner, and I've had a number of discussions with him about this, relates to the boundary conditions. And the Commissioner took a much broader definition of the boundary conditions. Our focus was on the source of the emissions and the reductions that took place within that source. So if, for example, there was another project miles away that was started during the course of the program, it was not counted. We were focused on reducing emissions at the source. In that context, this program reduced 4.7 megatons of CO2 during the first two intakes. So it succeeded significantly in ensuring that there was a continuing focus on methane reduction during a period of very significant financial stress for the companies in the oil and gas space.
Thank you, Minister. And when you became aware and when officials from your department became aware that this has been overstated, were there any prompt changes to the program or any action taken by yourself or those in the department?
Well, again, I don't agree with the characterization of overstated. The boundary conditions that were used in developing and implementing this program were based on the World Resource Institute Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which is used globally for GHG reduction projects. It provides for the accounting and the reporting of GHG reductions. I would note that in terms of methodology, it is what the International Energy Agency itself utilizes. So there's a difference in perspective with the commissioner in terms of the boundary conditions. I would tell you that if you're focused on the source of methane emissions, which I think we must be if we're looking to reduce them, the reductions were about 4.7 megatons during the first two calls for proposals, which is about 1 million cars off the road.
Thank you. And in keeping with you talk about the reduction targets. The emission reduction target, if I'm not mistaken, was between 0 and 3.7 megatons for CO2. Just a question. In your view, would a reduction goal of 0 be acceptable in your view?
As I say, the focus of the program was twofold. It was to maintain jobs in the oil and gas space at a time when we actually had negative energy prices for a period of time, and there was a lot of stress in the sector. And it was also to keep companies focused on reducing emissions from these sources.
But would you consider a reduction of 0 emissions a success, as that is
Well, what
stated? I'm
saying to you is the actual reductions were 4.7 megatons of CO2 equivalent, which is the equivalent of 1 million cars on the road. Should be successful.
Okay, thank you, Minister. You also noted in your opening remarks, and I believe in the past, you've mentioned this before as well, is sort of in a defense of the, I'd say, defense of the underperformance on emission reduction. You've claimed that the program has helped to create jobs and helped to save jobs. However, I note that the program doesn't include job retention in its criteria for eligibility or funding assessment. So, in your view, Minister, how could the government actually guarantee that this funding would lead to Canadian jobs being saved if it wasn't a requirement set out?
I think it was pretty evident to anybody who was observing what was happening in the sector that there was significant concern about loss of jobs, just given the nature of what was happening with respect to energy prices. Given the circumstances and the timing, there was no reasonable nor credible way to have this information provided up front. So we designed the program to obtain these figures following the project's implementation, and these will be publicly reported. But I would say that the anecdotal evidence is entirely clear. Many service companies and technology companies have been employed to make these things happen. And communities from places like Estevan and Slave Lake and Brandon, the mayors have put out statements saying, effectively, the project has supported economic activity and jobs in our region and will meaningfully reduce emissions. This is the mayor of Brandon. So I think, again, on that score, the program has been successful.
Thank you. And just a simple question on a follow-up to that, given that, as you claim, job retention was a goal of the program, was there, what would be your rationale, I guess, Minister, as to why that was not baked right into the eligibility rules?
Well, as I say, this was brought into place very rapidly in order to respond to what was an economic crisis in the sector. And it was something that many in Western Canada were calling for. And so what we did in order to respond in a reasonable period of time to the crisis that existed in the sector was to bring forward a program which said, we recognize that there is this challenge. We recognize that people are going to be laid off. And we are going to respond to that, and we are going to require the reporting on job retention numbers at the back end of the program, and they will all be public.
I don't have much time left, so I'll hand that back to the chair. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, it was coming right up on the end of the 6 minutes, so thank you. We will now go to Mr. Shahal for his 6 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Minister. Thank you for joining us today. On Monday, we had the opportunity to hear a number of interesting perspectives on the Emissions Reduction Fund. As the MP for Calgary Skyview, I'm deeply interested in the future of our energy industry. Thousands of workers, many of whom live in my riding, have built careers in energy, and programs like the Emissions Reduction Fund and others directly impact Calgarians and our economy. Could the minister highlight for my constituents how this program has benefited our economy since its launch and how it has contributed to ensuring good-paying jobs for Calgarians?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. I mean, of course, the fight against climate change and the transition to a low carbon economy is something that will benefit all regions of this country. This fund was set up to achieve two things: to maintain jobs during a period of significant economic stress for the sector, but also to ensure that we had a continuing focus on reducing emissions. And there were a number of companies that have benefited significantly. There were 24 companies, including companies like Danzig Resources and NuVista Energy, located in Calgary, who signed contribution agreements in Alberta for a total of 52 projects. That represents about $80 million in federal funding. The projects funded in Alberta have helped to maintain jobs for many skilled workers, some of which include environmental engineers and those who work in the trades.
Thank you. Minister, we know how difficult the pandemic was throughout the economy as it relates to employment. Calgary's energy sector had experienced intense challenges well before COVID-19, and the additional blow was devastating for so many local businesses. Our government immediately took leadership and stood up for struggling workers by introducing programs like CERB and the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy. Many successful recipients of the Emissions Reduction Fund came from Alberta during a time where COVID-19 was causing economic challenges across all sectors and for businesses of all sizes. Could the minister highlight the intent of this program upon its initial launch?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, the program was launched during the midst of the pandemic, as you have pointed out, when businesses were facing a lot of uncertainty and we were seeing record low prices for oil and gas. It was intended as a COVID response measure. It was designed to support and ensure that workers and their jobs would be protected. It was also intended as a climate measure to ensure that companies were able to continue to focus on reducing emissions during this very difficult time. As I said, 24 companies in Calgary were recipients of this for a total of $80 million. I would also say that it helped to continue the work that was being done on technologies that will be a comparative advantage for Alberta in the context of being able to export these technologies going forward around the world.
As a member of Parliament for Calgary, I hear a lot about the importance of a competitive energy industry that allows our innovators to put forward creative solutions to the challenges our world faces in energy, chief among those being reducing emissions in the fight against climate change. In order to access investment and signal to the market that our industry is committed to hitting our emissions targets, private sector firms and governments need to work collaboratively to create conditions for innovation while remaining competitive in a global marketplace. Could the minister explain how the ERF will work to increase competitiveness and improve investor confidence within the sector?
Thank you for the question. Certainly, investors and purchasers of energy commodities are increasingly demanding lower carbon energy products. That's true around the world. By significantly reducing methane emissions and implementing continuous, accurate metering and reporting, companies can verify emissions reductions and emissions intensity improvements associated with their products. These companies are able to improve investor confidence and may be able to access premium energy markets that demand high ESG performance. I would also say, with respect to innovation, this program and the methane regulations themselves actually drive significant innovation with respect to technology development and implementation, something that I discussed at length on a couple of different occasions with Minister Nixon in my previous portfolio, which is an area that will, again, be a source of comparative advantage in the future.
Minister, we have heard a lot about the importance of reaching our emissions targets. I've had the opportunity to review material from various initiatives, and it's clear that our government's plan has us on the right track. My constituents in Calgary Skyview continue to remind me how important our commitment of reaching net zero by 2050 is to them. I represent a very young riding with constituents who are deeply concerned about the world they're leaving behind for their children. Could you explain how this program will help us reach our net zero goals?
Thank you again for the question. I mean, of course, climate change is an existential threat, and it is something that we must address, but we have to address it in thoughtful ways, in ways that actually will promote economic prosperity for all regions of this country. Our government has put into place a climate plan that is perhaps one of the most comprehensive that exists in the world, comprehensive and detailed. And it certainly has elements that relate to all sectors, but certainly the oil and gas sector, which is the largest single source of emissions in Canada. That includes, putting a price on carbon pollution, strengthening our existing methane regulations, clean fuel regulations, putting a cap on emissions from the oil and gas sector, but it also includes making strategic investments in the oil and gas sector to help companies adopt clean technologies and invest in infrastructure necessary to eliminate emissions. This program is exactly on that track, which is focusing on ensuring we are driving and working and partnering with the sector to ensure that we are actually making the emissions reductions possible in a manner that actually will enhance competitiveness.
There, thank you. We're out of time on that round. I also had meant in my opening comments to welcome Mr. Morris here again at the table and Ms. Goodridge for substituting in again today. Good to see you. Our next 6 minutes goes to Monsieur Simard. So, Monsieur Simard, over to you.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here today. I know that you are sensitive to the environment, and that's something that's very useful when being in the Department of Natural Resources, so I look on that very favourably. I listened to your presentation earlier, and there was something that gave me food for thought, and I'd like to come back to that. You said that the next call for proposals for the ERF will be adapted to economic perspectives and our current environmental targets and not the ones that existed 2 years ago. I think that's interesting because Mr. Pinault came to see us on Monday, Professor Pinault, and he was saying that the context for the ERF took place when we had very low oil prices, which of course had a negative impact on the Albertan economy. But now oil prices are much higher, so the industry is profitable. So I don't see why they need this financial support. Even the name Emissions Reduction Fund is a bit pompous. And I think that my colleague from Calgary Skyview demonstrated that at the last meeting. It was a fund that was there to support the oil industry that was going through a rough patch during COVID. And we can see this in the Commissioner's report. 2/3 of the projects, 27 out of 40 projects that were to be funded would actually lead to an increase in production. Given that and the fact that you've said that we have to concentrate on our current economic outlooks and our current environmental targets rather than the ones that existed 2 years ago, do you not think that when we have the third call for proposals, don't you think that we should perhaps not actually go for this third call from the department? Just a moment for the clerk. When we have translation, the level of translation is lower than the original for me, so it's very difficult for me to hear this, says the minister. And of course, I can understand the French, but perhaps for others it's difficult. The interpreter points out it may be a question of the Zoom settings. So, Mr. Simard, your comment is a very useful one, of course. We have made changes for this third call for proposals, the third intake period, exactly as you've said. The economy in this sector is going in a better direction now. Things have improved. And now we're chasing emissions that are higher than those that are required in our regulations. So we want to accelerate the work of reducing greenhouse gas emissions and make sure that we can actually reach our target of 40 to 45% reduction by 2030. Now, there was another question that you put. Your second question, please, again. Well, I can sum it up as follows. The panelists that came before us on Monday led me at the end of the meeting to put a question to them, in particular with Professor Pinault and Ms. Julia Levin and Mr. Delmarchal and Mr. Tom Green, all of the panelists. Well, I put the question to them at the end to see whether they would agree to the fact that we should just drop this third intake period. We're talking about an enormous amount, 750 million total. So I was asking whether we should just drop this third intake period that you've just opened up and leave this programme aside. I don't think the oil and gas sector needs more support from the government. And given the reaction from certain specialists from this area, that leads me really to the question to ask whether you should just drop the programme. Well, we have our third period. We're not going to already foreshadow decisions to be taken in the future, but I'd like to say that we are making investments in almost all economic sectors in order to step up their efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And of course, in the aluminium sector in Quebec, we've done a great deal of investment to expedite the work there. And the oil and gas sectors are important. We need to have greenhouse gas reductions there as well, as with all the other economic sectors. Well, I will go into that door that just opened up to me. I'll be charming. I think that the most promising sector is the forestry sector, and it's the one that gets the least investment from the federal government. We're talking about $20 billion in the Quebec economy that's made up of the forestry sector, and they get 0.3% of support from the federal government. I just wanted to put that figure to you. And out of this 0.3 pence, there's 70% of this money that comes in the forms of loans. So if we compare what's happening in the very promising forestry sector in terms of greenhouse gas reduction, on the other hand, the oil sector is comparing David with Goliath. It's totally out of proportion. Now, today, if you would say that you're ready to distribute this money to the forestry sector, then of course I wouldn't bother you again until the end of your mandate. But unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be the case. And I don't think this would be wise. Panelists and specialists have suggested that we should not continue into this third intake period that's now been opened up. Well, we've had some conversations about the forestry sector already. I agree with you that it is very important for the economy of Canada, and specifically the Quebec economy. The ERF was set up with a specific objective for a specific sector. But of course, the forestry sector also has support programs such as the Forestry Innovation Fund with current federal funding of almost $100 million over 3 years. And there are some other programs that exist as well. Of course, the forestry sector is very important, and it's a source of reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. That is why we've got the 2 billion tree program that we're going to plant over the next 10 years.
Gone a bit over on that round, so thank you, Minister, for the response to the question. We're going to jump now to Mr. Angus for his 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Mr. Minister, for joining us in the study on the methane review. I'd like to focus this issue, I think, on the fundamental question of trust. I mean, we're dealing with a climate catastrophe that's unfolding. The Prime Minister has made really powerful statements internationally. So when we have a fund to deal with something that's a planet killer like methane, we expect results. And I have to say I was really shocked when I read the Environment Commissioner's report that your department wasn't bothering to actually check whether or not emissions actually happened. They gave $134 million out the door, and they weren't checking whether the fundamental issue of methane reduction actually took place. That's pretty irresponsible, don't you think?
Well, Mr. Angus, I don't think that's actually what anybody said. So every project is measured, and in fact, part of the project is actually implementing measurement technologies to ensure that you are actually tracking emissions reductions. That's why we can actually say that from the first two tranches, we will achieve reductions in the range of 4.7 megatons, which is the equivalent of taking 1 million cars off the road. So I do not agree with your characterization.
Well, I hope you've taken 1 million cars off the road, Mr. Minister. But the fact is, most of the reductions that you can claim come from regulations. That's in the report. You don't have the ability to tell us what actually happened because you don't know. Your department, he said, when we set out to do this audit, I was hoping to get a firm number on what level of reduction was coming out of the emissions fund because it's called an emissions reduction fund. And we were surprised and disappointed to see that natural resources isn't doing the necessary tracking. Then he said to question whether there are, quote, any actual net emission reductions at all. So if you were just going to give $134 million to big oil, why didn't you just say it was an economic development fund? Why did you claim to the Canadian people that you were actually concerned about methane?
Thank you for the question. The program, as I indicated earlier, was designed initially as a COVID response measure to ensure that we were maintaining jobs in the sector at a time of low energy prices and to ensure that companies continued to reduce emissions in line with the regulations and beyond at a time when they would not be spending money on methane reductions given the state of the financial situation that they found themselves in. In that context, the program succeeded. It ensured that companies continued to focus on methane reductions. And I will tell you, some of those reductions were in some of them certainly were more. 97% of the projects focused on eliminating venting and flaring. The current regulations do not require the elimination of venting and flaring, and therefore most of the projects went well beyond the 2025 requirements.
It must be so hard, Minister, to have an environment commissioner.
Sorry, can I stop you I'm going to stop the clock. We've had just a slight issue with the interpretation, and I just wanted to, I've been asked ask the minister to click on the interpretation and select mute original audio. That may help, and then if you can just readjust your mic, we've had it click out a couple of times when you've been speaking. If you're still having that audio issue, and yeah,
okay,
we'll try that again. Sorry, Mr. Angus, you're good to carry on.
Thank you. Well, yeah, I'm really pleased to see you talking about job retention and the economic development issues. But when the department set up this fund, job retention was not part of the assessment criteria. So again, if you want to give $134 million to big oil, then just say it. Why not say this is a subsidy? Because when the Environment Commissioner asked your officials for an explanation, they said their priority was the economic needs of the oil companies. So that's pretty straightforward. Why not just come here and say, hey, listen, we were in it was COVID, our Liberal member for Calgary needed to have jobs protected, so we wanted to hire people in the oil sector. Why didn't you just say that? Why did you come here and claim you were actually reducing methane when you don't have any proof that you did that because you weren't tracking it? That's what the Environment Commissioner told us. He said you were not looking at these issues.
Well, Mr. Angus, with all due respect, that's just not true. It is being tracked. It's tracked in every project, and I'm happy to have officials walk you through exactly how that methodology works. We use the methodology put out by the World Resources Institute. It is used by the International Energy Agency as well as organizations around the world. We have been able to
sorry,
show
Minister, I don't have much time left. I don't have much time left, but the question is, you were claiming this when the Environment Commissioner is saying that you weren't. And he said what really worried him was the attitude of your officials. He said the attitude of your officials, that they didn't understand the concept of actually having baseline emissions data. Like, don't you think that that's really important? Or I guess it would be pretty convenient to be able to pull 1 million cars off the road and fictitiously if you don't have baseline emissions data. He said the response of your officials concerned him. He said he was disappointed by your department. And he said the attitude of your officials, quote, doesn't bode well. I think you should come here and say, we're sorry, we screwed up, we're going to fix it because the planet needs it. That's what trust is. To
Point
come
of order,
and give a spin is
Mr.
not
Chair.
credible.
We're not here to conduct a character assassination or explore opinions of other people's perception of how other people acted. We're here to explore data. We're here to explore the report. And we're here to talk to the minister about the program. So with all due respect, I think we should focus on that.
Well, yeah,
My time is being interrupted by Liberals.
I stopped the clock.
Thank you for doing that. Yeah. I am referring to what the Environment Commissioner said. If the Liberals want to interfere and try and stop me from doing my job as a member is to ask the minister. So I know you've given him a good breathing space, but the question that's being asked is what the Environment Commissioner raised, and the Environment Commissioner raised his serious concerns that the attitudes of your department, this is on your watch, don't bode well for future projects. How do you explain that?
Well, Mr. Angus, I would say the officials in my department are professionals, just as the commissioner is a professional. They had a difference of opinion with respect to the boundary conditions that one uses in accounting for emissions reductions. Ours aligns with the World Resource Institute and the International Energy Agency's methodology. He had a broader definition of emissions that actually would be captured under the cap, and there was a legitimate difference of opinion.
We're out of time on this one. Thank you. I should also ask that when we're having our exchanges, it's good to get into it, but if we could have just one person speaking, it does make it really difficult for the interpreters if we have two people talking at the same time. So if I'll try to give the person who's asking the questions the chance to get through their questions, but we just need to make it easy for the interpreters as well. We're going to go now into our second round of questions, and these ones, first two are for 5 minutes. And Ms. Rempel-Garner, you're up first.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, just to build on my colleague from the NDP's line of questions on job creation, how many jobs were created from the expenditures in this program to date?
As I said, given the circumstances of timing, there was no reasonable or credible way to have done this information up front. So that information is being collected, and it will be public as the program proceeds.
So you don't know how many jobs were created?
Well, certainly, anecdotally, we do. I mean, if you actually go and talk to any of the companies that exist, most of them exist in your province, you will find that all of them are telling you that they have been able to actually maintain jobs. And if you go talk to the mayor of Slave Lake or Estevan or others, they will tell you the same thing.
Are you doing any calculations on the net jobs created versus jobs lost under your government's policies per this fund? Like, was this like sort of an appeasement fund to deal with the number of job losses in Alberta over the years of your government in the energy sector?
As I said at the beginning, the focus of this very much was responding to the crisis the oil and gas sector found itself in, to try to ensure that people were not losing their jobs and losing their homes during the COVID pandemic. And in that regard, as well as in the emissions reduction guard, the program has succeeded.
Are you saying that the downturn in the energy sector is solely related to the pandemic?
No, I am not. I am saying that this program was a response to the fact that oil prices had gone very low, and in fact, they went negative for a period of time. There was enormous stress in the sector.
Do you know why the negative energy prices in Canada were so prescribed? Or so dramatic?
I think the focus of this is probably not a broader discussion around energy policy, but I'm happy to have that with you. But this is around the emissions reduction fund, and it was a response. It was a response to the record low energy prices, and it was something that the sector was looking for.
You've introduced that. So part of the reason why the prices were so depressed is because the delta that we get for Canadian energy versus world prices is lower, or it's higher because we are a price taker to the Americans because of our lack of energy infrastructure. So would you admit finally that perhaps because your government did precious little to save the Keystone XL pipeline, that that's why we were so unresilient going into the pandemic in the energy sector?
Well, I wouldn't agree with a whole bunch of the things that you said in there, but first of all, the government did actually support the Keystone XL pipeline and worked very hard to try to ensure that the Americans approved that. As you know, it was stopped by President Biden. But
right.
what I would say to you is,
I was around. It is my time, Minister. I do remember being in the House. I don't think you were around at that point when President Obama actually vetoed it. The Prime Minister did not intervene, so it was slightly unfortunate, and that delta became more of an issue. So you really have no idea how many jobs this created at all, or the net. That's what you're saying. So it's $675 million. How much of that went to CEO bonuses? Do you know?
No, it had to be spent on technology implementation to reduce emissions. That was the only way that it could be spent. And so none of it would have gone to CEO bonuses.
But to be fair, the commissioner did say that there was, let me quote here, did not follow accounting principles or standard when preparing its expected estimates. So how would we know that it didn't go to CEO bonuses if you can't tell me how many jobs were created and you can't tell us how much you reduced the emissions by? Like, it's kind of—
Well, I actually can tell you. I can tell you how much it reduced emissions by, and I have. I would also say that there is accounting for exactly what the project money is spent on, and I'm happy to have officials walk you through that if you would like.
On the emissions reduction, did you net out how much emissions were reduced because of the downturn in production during the pandemic and because of Liberal policies?
So the way in which the process works is you look at the source and how much emissions it is producing, and then you look after the implementation of technology at how much it's been reduced.
Great. So again, though, did you actually take into consideration at all that because Liberal policies have reduced production in the energy sector, that perhaps that's due to job loss, et cetera, that sort of thing?
Well, first of all, it's based on actual. So it's based on actual production and actual emissions. So that would have nothing to do with it. But I would also say to you that this drive-by sort of language is just not, I would say, just not appropriate. This government has worked very hard for the energy sector, just as it has for every sector. And,
I think you've
certainly
worked fairly hard against the energy sector. And as far as language goes, I am quoting from
but that is actually not true.
I'm quoting from the commissioner's report, so it's unfortunate. Look, I think it's really sad that you are coming here saying that you're going to spend over $1 billion of taxpayer money when people in my province are hurting. You can't even say how many jobs were created by this. Do you think that's good policy?
So the focus actually of the program at the beginning, just to be clear, was on maintaining jobs. It was actually keeping people employed at a time where this work would simply. If you go and talk to almost any of the local mayors who had work done in their area, they will tell you this was an extremely important program to keep people working. And so on that basis, yes, it was successful.
Okay, we're going to have to stop there. That's the end of our 5 minutes. We move now over to Ms. Lapointe for her 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. And thank you, Minister, for joining us here today. Since the late 19th century, the mining industry in my riding of Sudbury, something that I will take every opportunity to talk about and promote, has produced more than 8 million tons of base metals. Unfortunately, as we now know, early mining methods scarred the land and acidified the lakes. But despite the economic gains of the booming mining industry, we had to take action and we had to change the way things were being done. Today, as we all know, Sudbury's regreening process has been recognized globally for our successful environmental rehabilitation. So on this topic, I have a few questions for you, Minister. I'll start by asking if you could explain how the ERF program will play a part in and fit into our government's plan to cap emissions from the oil and gas sector. And the second part of my question is, could you also expand on some of the long-term benefits we can expect to see from this program?
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. When we designed the Emissions Reduction Fund, we sought not only to protect jobs, but also to help the industry continue to reduce methane and other harmful greenhouse gas emissions. And we focused on methane because this greenhouse gas is significantly more potent than CO2, for example. It has vastly more warming potential. It's responsible for about 30% of global temperature rise, and it represents 13% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. With that in mind, in terms of targeting methane emissions and limiting its release, it's got to be one of the fastest ways to fight climate change. And so this, obviously, the cap is an overall cap on the oil and gas space, but this is one of the key components. Certainly the methane regs are as well. Now that the economic crisis in the sector has passed, we're refocusing the program to actually pull forward emissions, to actually ensure that we are going above and beyond the regulatory requirements for 2025 to ensure that we actually meet our climate target for 2030.
Merci. À Sudbury, la dévastation causée.
The devastation caused by the first processes are undeniable. And we have wanted to remedy the situation, and it was expensive and a great deal of work had to be done. And there needed to be political will and innovation deployed. But it was clear that these changes were irrefutably necessary. Of course, there would be serious consequences if Canada didn't act urgently and swiftly to turn around the environmental damage caused by greenhouse gas emissions. So can you explain the consequences of not taking action within 15 and 20 years and explain how the Emissions Reduction Fund will ensure that this will not become a reality? Thank you very much. Canada can choose to be a leader when it comes to the global energy transition, or we can decide to do nothing and just hope for the best. We've seen in my own province of British Columbia the impact of climate change. If we choose to do nothing, the costs will be considerable. And recently, the Bank of Canada has published a report and has shown that the cost for our economy could represent a tenth of our GDP or more. That would be the consequence of not taking action. The ERF is one of the many tools that's available to us to fight against greenhouse gas emissions. And over the years, we hope that these projects will allow us to eliminate around 30 megatons of CO2.
It's clear that many communities and families rely on good-paying jobs from the natural resources sector, certainly Sudbury and other communities, and that includes the oil and gas. Can the minister explain how the ERF and other programs will make sure families and communities are well supported as we make the necessary sustainable transition to a cleaner economy and cleaner jobs?
So thank you. It's a very good question. The ERF was designed to help maintain jobs and enhance economic competitiveness, all while reducing methane emissions through the sector. The program certainly led to companies seeking more highly skilled workers and firms that specialize in professional engineering, environmental services, construction, and clean technology. It also has resulted in spin-offs of technologies that, as I say, will end up being exported to countries around the world. In terms of communities, I mean, you go talk to the mayors of some of the communities that I've mentioned, Estevan and Brandon and Slave Lake, who have all said this was extremely important from an economic perspective in supporting families and workers and the communities to ensure that they actually got through this very challenging time in a good way. And this program, as I've said before, is one component amongst many, and we continue to work towards a sustainable transition. We're going to be working with provinces and territories, industry, academia, Indigenous partners, and of course, with workers to ensure that we have appropriate feedback and that we're working towards a future that's going to be a good future for everybody, a future where we have a sustainable environment and a sustainable economy.
Thank you.
Okay, we're out of time on that one, and I know, Minister, you need to leave. I was told right at 5 or 4:30 to head to another meeting. So, in the interest of time, we're going to jump right to Monsieur Simard, who has a 2-minute 30-second intervention.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, as the former Environment Minister, you know that one of the main environmental principles is that the polluter should pay. It's a simple principle. The big polluters have to foot the bill for the negative effects of GHG emissions. But it seems that Canada is taking a different course where that's the polluter pays principle is not being applied. There's been so much economic support that's been given to the oil and gas sector. There's figures where we get lost and bogged down in all of these figures. First of all, it seems that you don't seem to know what a subsidy is actually all about. And some people are saying that between 2017 to 2020, it's around $24 billion that's been paid out. That is a considerable amount of money, and many people are affirming that Canada is the country in the G20 that is most vigorously supporting the oil and gas sectors. So the problem that I see with all of these programs, such as the ERF, is that there is some sort of greenwashing going on here. we're trying to turn the oil and gas sector into something more sexy for environmentalists. And this is very expensive. The more we support fossil fuels, the more we're actually delaying the arrival of new, greener, cleaner technologies. And so I'd like to come back to a question that I put earlier. Do you not think that it would be better to actually put aside this ERF program completely? Thank you for those questions. I agree with you when you've said that, of course, the companies that are releasing these emissions have to pay for that, and that is why there's this price on pollution throughout Canada. And that's very significant to create incentives to ensure that companies do take action against the emissions that they're releasing into the environment. But, of course, we also have to invest in accelerating the work to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're making investments across all the sectors in Canada. Of course, we've invested in the deployment of electric vehicles, and with the steel industry in Ontario and the aluminum industry in Quebec. And of course, we have to expedite our work in the oil and gas sector. And of course, we also have to protect the jobs of the workers who are finding themselves in a very difficult position, especially during COVID.
I think the last round of questions we're going to have for Mr. Angus, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I want to go back, and I've stayed focused on the Environment Commissioner's report of this fund, where he warned that your government needs to stop going from, quote, failure to failure. He said, how bad has it been? Since Paris, we've had an increase in emissions, and the other G7 countries are doing better than we since Paris. He says that emissions are going up, even though you've designed these individual programs that are supposed to bring them down, but it's because this program was designed as a fossil fuel subsidy. And that he said this department did not design this program to ensure credible and sustainable reductions of greenhouse gas emissions. But what I thought was really powerful is that he said the companies that got the funds said they were going to use it to increase production. So again, if you were using this as just another subsidy for the oil sector, you should have been honest about it. But I ask you, being that you're telling the world, your Prime Minister told the world that Canada is going to have an emissions cap, if we're going to be increasing production, how are you going to be credible that you're actually going to get your greenhouse gas emissions targets? Because if you're using the methane targets to increase production, how can we trust you on anything else?
Well, I would say to the honourable member that the focus of this program absolutely is on reducing emissions. We have achieved reductions of 4.7 megatons, which is equivalent of 1 million cars on the road. And the action taken in this space has been the same as the action taken across the board with respect to climate. I would call the member's attention to the president of the International Energy Organization, which said a couple of weeks ago that Canada has shown impressive leadership both at home and abroad on clean and equitable energy transition.
Yeah, but with all due respect, he said that because he said that these are based on your promises. And what the Environment Commissioner said is we don't need any more promises and targets. We need you to meet them. This report said that you failed. So we're sticking to the Environment Commissioner's report. If you want to bring someone else's report, we'll bring those witnesses. But he said you failed and production is increasing. Why are you not taking responsibility for this?
Well, in the context of the emissions reduction report, actually, the emissions have gone down, and they've gone down significantly. If, in fact, the commissioner is looking at a project that a company may want to do 100 miles away from the project to reduce emissions, that's a very different thing.
He didn't say these were 100 miles away. He said this is the money that you gave them. You're making this up. You're making this up. Stay focused to the report.
Sorry, I'll interrupt. We are at the end of our time there. And as I said, it does make it hard when for the interpreters when we have more than one conversation. But we're at the end of the 2.5 minutes. And So I think we're going to wrap this panel up. Unfortunately, I know, Mr. Guire, you said you had a quick question, but we have two panelists that...
It's related to Brandon with the minister, and I'm from Brandon, so I thought I'd just give him a quick one.
You know, I know he needs to go, and we do have the next panel that's ready to go. And
The point of order, Chair. We still have 2 minutes
question
left. Yeah, give it to Mr. McGuire.
He's not going anywhere.
Well, what time are we at? Let me...
We got 28. We got time
yeah,
for...
4:29.
I'll be 30 seconds. John can answer me in 30.
Brandon Mayer had some good things to say.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Mr. Crest was right, and I would agree with him. If there were jobs coming out of these things, jobs are always good. And so I just wondered if you could provide me with the numbers of the retention of jobs or the creation of new ones in the Brandon project, so I can report that back to the Mayor.
And as I had said earlier on, I'd be very happy to provide you with those, that we are collecting them now in the aftermath of the implementation of the project. I'd be very happy to actually sit down and go through that with you once we've got the numbers.
Oh, you don't have them now. So, yeah, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. McGuire. And I think you're up for our next round, so we'll hear more from you. So, Minister and the officials, with Ms. Johnson, Ms. Scharf, and Mr. Layer, thank you for joining us for the panel with the Minister this afternoon. We're going to, if you want to jump off the line, we're just going to bring in the next panel. And I understand there may be a couple of people who need to have a quick mic check. Just looking for our clerk to make sure, or if that all got sorted out in the back room, we may be able to go right into the panel.
Sorry, just needed to unmute myself. We will do a very quick sound check with Mr. Cosby and Ms. Gorski just to make sure that that works, and then we can start. Thank you.
Can you hear me all right?
Hello, Mr. Cosby. We'll just do a quick sound check. If I can get you to raise your microphone up a little bit higher between your nose and your mouth and say a few words, maybe talk about the weather, we'll make sure our interpreters can hear you. Thank you.
I'm coming to you from sunny, beautiful British Columbia, halfway between Calgary and Vancouver on this fine winter day. Shall I keep going?
Interpreters?
Hillary, I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure his mic is selected. Can we check? Okay, thank you.
Cosby, can I get you to look at the bottom of your Zoom screen and click on the little microphone and make sure that's chat. That's working.
Yes. Okay. Sorry.
As we get through that. So we're going to now proceed to our second panel of witnesses today, and I don't know if everybody was there at the start, so briefly as we go through it, I will give a yellow card when you have 30 seconds left in either your opening statements or when the allotted time is up for each of the MPs and their time for questioning. And that's just a warning. And then the red card, when the time is up, don't stop mid-sentence, but wrap up your thoughts. We can move on to the next person so everybody gets their fair chance at participating today. Joining us for this panel, we have from the International Institute for Sustainable Development, Aaron Cosby, Senior Associate. From the Pembina Institute, Chris Severson-Baker, Regional Director, Alberta. And Jan Gorski, Director, Oil and Gas. And I believe Jan will do the opening remarks for the Pembina Institute. We also have Whitecap Resources with Patrick Kitchen, Director, Regulatory and Environmental Sustainability, joining us. So thank you, everyone, for making time to be with us today for this study. And we will go into opening statements. So each of you will have 5 minutes, and then we'll get into our round of questions and answers. So Mr. Cosby, we'll start with you with your opening statement for 5 minutes.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks for my opportunity to present views of IISD to the Commission hearings on the ARF. As a general proposition, IISD has concerns about subsidies to the oil and gas sectors, whether for decarbonization or for other purposes. We have a long history of work in this area, both in Canada and internationally. And Canada, unfortunately, has a long history of unfulfilled commitments. To be clear, we support well-crafted subsidies that facilitate the coming industrial transformation. Clearly, the government has a significant role to play in helping Canadian heavy industry to decarbonize on the road to net zero, be that in steel, aluminum, cement, pulp and paper. But oil and gas is not like those other industrial sectors in 3 important ways. Subsidies to oil and gas may lead to increased viability of industries whose products ultimately we need less of, not more of, if we're addressing the climate change crisis. That means that every dollar spent supporting oil and gas is a dollar not spent supporting the sectors of the future, those that will provide long-term growth for Canadian workers and families. And support to oil and gas risks signaling that there's no need to prepare for a time when demand for its products are no longer at their current strength. And so it risks making the eventual transition more painful for dependent workers and communities, and it risks contributing to the financial crisis of significant stranded assets. Now, those are problems that are specific to subsidies in the oil and gas sector, but they're layered on top of risks and pitfalls that are subject or inherent in any industrial subsidies. It's a long list, but among the key concerns are that they can create vested interests who will advocate for their continuation after the subsidy is no longer necessary. They can blunt incentives to move toward energy transition. And of course, they can violate the polluter pays principle. To help ensure that Canadian taxpayer dollars don't create those kinds of undesirable outcomes, ISDs have developed some basic principles, some of which have strong relevance to the ERF. These are in part derived from and adapted from a set of guiding principles and recommendations on green spending in the COVID recovery plan, our Green Strings report. This was submitted to the government in 2021 with the support of 12 other Canadian environmental organizations. Of particular relevance here, the principle that no support should be offered that lowers the cost of production for gas and oil installations. No support should be offered to comply with existing regulations or pending regulations. Support should only go to applicants with credible plans for net zero by 2050. And finally, support must be accompanied by clear signaling on Canada's vision for the future of the sector and meaningful commitment to just transition for affected workers and communities. Given the pitfalls inherent in subsidies, which we know in some depth, our clear preference would be for strong, effective regulations that reduce methane emissions in the oil and gas sectors. But we don't currently have those, and it may take years to get them. So as a second best solution, we see a role for programs like ERF. And we're happy to see improvements in the ERF in the third intake. Some of them are aligned with the principles I just described. And we're particularly happy with the principle that projects have to fully eliminate all continuous sources of intentional routine venting and flaring. That projects must exceed regulatory requirements, pending and current. And the projects must show detailed financial case for additionality of the emissions reductions they claim to be financing. So all of that is good. Unfortunately, we predict that increased stringency is going to mean very few applicants. So very little methane is going to be reduced in the third intake, which is a problem. Other witnesses have stressed the urgency of reducing methane emissions. They are immediate reductions. They are cheap reductions. We know that from the ERF's experience in this area, and we know that from other international experience. So where does that leave us? I come back to it. It leaves us with strong and effective methane regulations with 2 primary objectives: eliminating completely intentional venting and flaring, and better accounting for and reducing leakage. the main source of international or intentional emissions, the pneumatic gas actuated controllers, we have technological substitutes for. They're cheap, they're available. These should be regulated out of existence. All other sources of known intentional emissions should be metered. As it is, we don't know the scale of the problem. So how can we address it? How can we make credible commitments? And we need more frequently mandated surveys to find and fix leaks. Those unintentional emissions are a big part of the discrepancy that we see again and again between measured and reported emissions. In closing, first best option is strong regulation in this sector. Second best option, until that first best happens, we need to make room for the kind of strong regulations that will reduce methane emissions, but it is strictly second best. And to deal with the problems of that second best, refer to our principles on how to administer subsidies and support to sectors like oil and gas. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you for your opening opening statement. We'll now move to Mr. Gorski with the Pembina Institute for 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jan Gorski, and I'm the director of the Oil and Gas Program at the Pembina Institute. My colleague, Chris Severson Baker, is the Alberta Regional Director. The Pembina Institute is a nonprofit think tank that advocates for strong, effective policies to support Canada's clean energy transition. We've advocated for methane regulations at the provincial and federal levels since before 2015, and we've informed their development and implementation since then. We've also provided recommendations to Natural Resources Canada on the design of the Emissions Reduction Fund, which were adopted. Pembina has a long history of working on environmental issues in the oil and gas sector, having done this for close to 4 decades. In 2021, we saw significant momentum building on reducing methane emissions, both in Canada and globally. Reports from the International Energy Agency, the United Nations Environment Program, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, all highlighted the urgent need to address methane emissions in 2021. Over 100 countries, including Canada, signed on to the Global Methane Pledge at COP26. This was a clear signal of impending global action. Recent research confirms that we need to act fast on methane. Cutting global methane emissions from all human sources, including oil and gas, agriculture, waste, and others, cutting these sources in half by 2030 would avoid an additional 0.5 degree increase in global temperatures by 2100. This is equivalent to slowing down global warming by almost 1/3. That's a large amount. So the need to act now is made more urgent by the fact that actual methane emissions are much higher than current government estimates. Studies in Canada and in the US consistently show the methane emissions from oil and gas could be as much as twice as high as what current government estimates show. Canada needs to get as close as possible to eliminating methane emissions from the oil and gas sector by the end of this decade. A 2019 study from the Canadian Energy Research Institute examined how much oil and gas methane we could eliminate using existing technology. This study found that methane emissions in 2017 could be reduced by 33 megatons. Based on our analysis of this report, this translates to almost a 90% reduction from 2012 levels at a cost of less than $25 a ton. This is very inexpensive when compared to the carbon price, which will be rising to $170 a ton. What this shows is that we have the technologies to drastically cut methane emissions, and they are commercially available and economically feasible. The federal government has recently set a new target to reduce oil and gas methane emissions by at least 75% by 2030, and is well placed to be a leader in addressing methane. But they must now act quickly to implement policy to meet and exceed that target. Such action must include strong regulations, but they also must address challenges with methane data and infrastructure barriers. There's a lot of uncertainty in the amount of methane emitted by oil and gas operations, as I mentioned. And so we need to improve methane data and continue to address the kind of infrastructure barriers that the Emissions Reduction Fund has been addressing. The fund was implemented during the pandemic to create jobs and economic benefits than the oil and gas sector, while at the same time reducing emissions. At that time, the government's own modeling showed that Canada's regulations were falling short of our 2025 methane reduction target of 40%. The fund was also meant to help bridge that gap, the gap to meeting our 2025 target. As Pembina recommended, the fund was designed to go beyond incremental reductions and to encourage the complete elimination of methane emissions, which is something that's not required by current regulations. Setting this ambitious target was the only way that the fund would achieve reductions above and beyond current regulations. In that respect, the fund was successful in that 97% of the money went to projects that eliminated methane. Given the urgency of the climate crisis and the need to act fast on methane, the fund should be kept for the remainder of 2022 to eliminate as much methane as possible. We are also still in the dark about progress towards Canada's 2025 methane reduction target because the federal government's recent progress report has not included promised updates to the national inventory or the most recently available data on the real levels of methane emissions. So there's a need to calculate what reductions from the fund were actually on top of regulations, meaning that they went above and beyond regulatory requirements. This information is key to evaluating Canada's progress towards the 2025 target. The federal government also needs to publicly release more detailed information from the ERF, showing the types of projects, costs, and emissions reductions that were funded. That data will help inform future policy design. So to wrap up, Canada has
Alors, pour conclure, le Canada a l'occasion d'être un chef de file.
Need to be a leader in addressing methane, and doing so is critical to addressing emissions from the oil and gas sector. And the government must waste no time and act quickly to implement policy to exceed our 2030 methane target.
Okay, thank you for those opening comments. We'll now jump right into the opening statement from Whitecap Resources with Mr. Kitchen. It's over to you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak with your committee today about Natural Resource Canada's Emission Reduction Fund. As you mentioned, I am the Director of Regulatory and Environmental Sustainability here at Whitecap Resources, an oil and gas producer with assets across the 4 western provinces. We are the operator and majority owner of Canada's largest carbon dioxide sequestration project, the Weyburn Unit, which has permanently sequestered roughly 38 million tons of carbon dioxide to date. And our company sits among the leaders in our industry for carbon intensity and emission reductions. Over the past few years, we have consolidated facilities, expanded pipeline networks, upgraded over 1,000 venting devices, and installed solution gas capture equipment, just to name a few examples of how we're reducing the carbon footprint of our assets. In early 2021, Natural Resources Canada approved an emission elimination project submitted under this program by High Rock Resources, a company which acquired by Whitecap in July. This project eliminated the company's largest emission source through the construction of a 10-kilometer pipeline to transport previously flared solution gas for processing and sale. The scope of the approved project did not include additional development, nor any facility upgrades, and was completed in early December 2021 for approximately $1.4 million. It is estimated to eliminate 36,500 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in the first 12 months and would not have been completed at this time without the funding, as the economics were below our internal hurdle rates. The execution of this project, located in Southeast Saskatchewan, directly benefited 19 third-party service companies that we engaged for engineering work through to construction. It also directly benefited many local landowners who were compensated financially for surface right-of-way access during construction. The $1.4 million incurred by Whitecap helped to sustain jobs during a period of reduced activity for our sector, directly supporting those businesses and local residents. High Rock applied for this funding because it presented an opportunity to execute a large emission reduction project that surpassed the minimum requirements of the provincial methane regulations, with a lower cost to the company during a period of significantly depressed energy markets. As we look to the third intake period, we began building applications for multiple projects in late 2021. Following the program changes implemented in response to the findings of the audit conducted by the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, we're still moving ahead with these projects in our application. Currently, they are all solution gas conservation projects, and the associated emission reductions is estimated to be over 250,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in the first year. These reductions would be directly attributable to the Emission Reduction Fund, as the assets involved are in compliance today with provincial methane regulations. The Emission Reduction Fund was released at a time when the oil and gas industry was struggling due to sharp and sustained declines to commodity prices. Service companies shouldered a significant burden as upstream producers exercised prudence by cutting capital development programs to protect their balance sheets through the downturn. Completion of the approved projects directly supported numerous service companies, contractors, communities, and landowners during a period of uncertainty and need. Generally speaking, these projects will also lead to ongoing work with third-party contractors for services such as equipment maintenance and repairs. Overall, I believe this program has been successful in supporting progress towards our national emission reduction targets, and most notably for the first two intake rounds, supporting a sector that was in severe financial duress. As noted in the audit findings, uptake in the first two rounds was lower than expected, likely due to a short application window that was very difficult for most companies to meet. With a much longer application window for intake 3, I would expect there to be many more projects submitted, and an opportunity for the federal government to continue progress towards its climate targets and exceed reductions attributed to existing policy frameworks. And while the economy is recovering and commodity prices today are stronger, the Emission Reduction Fund can still provide a substantial benefit to Canadians by enabling even deeper emission reductions earlier than they would have been achieved otherwise. Thank you again, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to speak with your committee today and share our experience with Natural Resource Canada's Emission Reduction Fund.
Excellent. Well, thank you to each of the three of you for your opening statements. And with that, we'll move right into our round of questioning. So first up, for 6 minutes, I have Mr. McGuire. So Mr. McGuire, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our presenters today for their fine presentations in regards to the study that we're doing here on emission reduction on the fund and its efficiencies. I just wanted to to take note. Thank you, Mr. Cosby, for your presentation. When I was an environment critic in Manitoba, I used to do quite a bit of work with the ISD as well, so appreciate your presentation today too. But I want to ask you, Mr. Kitchen, your company, as you've just pointed out, has shown that it's possible to reduce both the fugitive and the intentional methane gas emissions, the flares and others that with the funds that you've received. So can you summarize a little bit for our committee what exactly your company did to reduce the methane emissions? You mentioned the High Rock Resources. Are there others as well?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's a great question. For us, the project that was approved by High Rock Resources is the only project that we have submitted in the first two rounds to the ERF and have executed. For that project in particular, it was completed at an oil production facility in a region of Southeast Saskatchewan that currently has limited gas pipeline infrastructure in place. Prior to completing the project, we did not have a method to economically conserve the solution gas that was being produced. And it was previously venting off of multiple devices at the facility, which we were routing to a flare for destruction to help limit the emissions. Our project redirected that vented solution gas into a brand new 10-kilometer pipeline so that it could be processed and utilized.
And so the carbon capture technology that you're talking about is, it's required for Canada to help meet our internationals agreements. So do you agree with that? Do you think it's very responsible to be able to use that to help meet our international agreement targets like the UN Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Climate Accord?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I absolutely agree that carbon capture is and will be a key tool for society to meet our our commitments under international agreements such as the Paris Agreement. We will require as a society large and rapid emission reductions at scales that we haven't seen in the past. And this is a very effective way to meet those. And it's been highlighted by many institutions such as IPC that in order to meet our targets, carbon capture will have to be a key part of that solution.
Yeah, I got into politics as a farmer to be able to, try to expand the exports of our products. But here's another industry that has great technologies. You've introduced some of them. I've long believed that Canada should be exporting best practices and even selling equipment and green technologies to countries that are less rigorous in their environmental management. We heard last week or earlier this week from Monday from Mr. Lakeman of the Edmonton's Global Hydrogen Initiative, and he noted that the wide array of innovation regarding emissions reductions, including the carbon capture, are there environmental and economic opportunities then in the carbon capture that we could seize by further developing that technology and selling it abroad?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's another great question. I feel that we should be proud as Canadians that we have been a pioneer in carbon capture and a global leader in this space. And arguably, many of the leading experts in carbon capture are Canadian. And we've seen multiple IEA and IPCC reports that state that carbon capture will be required to meet our global ambitions. And we believe that our focus should be first on further developing this technology here in Canada to improve the processes, lower costs, and demonstrating firsthand the positive benefits it can have. And it presents a great opportunity for Canada to share its experience in this space and share and benefit financially from the knowledge and technology with international partners.
Yeah, I think it's been great for our universities and colleges in those areas, and for the industry technology, the industry effort in that area itself. Your company's brought online a few carbon capture projects, as you've mentioned. You've used the emissions reduction program to reduce methane emissions. That's proven. So do you have any recommendations on what you'd like to see in the design of the soon-to-be unveiled carbon capture tax credit?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any thoughts that you might have on that?
Yes. As Whitecap, we believe this incentive should support emitters who face very high costs to decarbonize. We don't think it's necessary for the capital spend on carbon dioxide, enhanced oil recovery, or CO2 EOR to attract the investment credit itself. However, it should support emitters who choose to implement carbon capture regardless of where the CO2 is stored, as long as emissions are being reduced and the carbon is permanently sequestered. It's important to remember that CO2 EOR projects do target existing depleted reservoirs, and the extended life of these reservoirs do help to reduce the surface environmental impacts of new exploration to meet existing and ongoing fuel demand. And while demand is strong, we do believe that Canadians should again be proud to support the market with lower carbon intensity oil that comes from CO2 EOR, which is estimated by the Clean Air Task Force to have 37% fewer emissions than a conventional barrel.
Yeah, I think that's pretty significant with those kinds of numbers. You indicated the 250,000 metric tons to be decreased in the first year here, and I commend you for being a net zero company when we're talking about net zero by 2050. You've indicated that in the past, that the company is already there. I think your information and your answers have been invaluable in that, in keeping with the mandate of exporting technology to help the whole world bring down our emissions.
I'm just going to jump in there now. We're out of the 6 minutes, and so thank you for that interaction, that exchange. We're now going to go to Ms. DeBrusen for her 6 minutes of questions.
Thank you. And actually, I'd love to pick up from where Mr. McGuire left off about the importance of innovation and developing Canadian technologies and to be able to export them as well. And the reason I say that is because I believe one of the panelists referred to the issue of leaks, methane leaks. And just in the past few weeks, we've had really great examples of how Canadian technology is actually at the forefront of trying to address that issue. So there was a list that was put out of 100 of the top clean tech industries in the world. Canada had 13 of those companies, and one of them is GHGSat. And I wanted to mention it because I think it's really important. They have the only satellites in the world with sufficient resolution to isolate small leaks by individual pads so that they can be fixed quickly. And in fact, on a weekly basis, they actually spot these leaks, and so that we can actually jump on that and address that source of methane emissions. So I digress because I know that we're talking about intentional venting today, but I think it's always really important to be able to say that we're at the forefront of some amazing innovations here in our country, and it fits as part of the puzzle. There's a bigger piece of the puzzle, the emission reduction fund being one piece. But why don't I actually get to the part about intentional venting? Now, perhaps if I start with the witness from the Pembina Institute, Mr. Baker, I believe you had mentioned that 97% of the projects addressed intentional venting. Is that correct? Did I have that number right?
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and let Jan answer that question.
Okay. Now, if I read your letter correctly, you had mentioned something about just talking about innovation in this piece, about the Emission Reduction Fund being a driver for Canadian leadership in methane abatement technology. I was wondering if you had anything that you wanted to add about that.
The statistic was that 97% of the money from the fund went to eliminate methane from intentional venting. So you were correct there. Canada absolutely has, is well placed to be a leader in addressing methane. So we have regulations in place right now. But to capture that leadership, really what we need to do is do good on our 2030 target and now set policy and regulations to achieve even further reductions. And that will drive, more innovation. It'll drive more economic development on the methane side in Canada.
I apologize. It was Mr. Gorski. I had written down the wrong name. But just so picking up on that, do you see a value in continuing with the Emission Reductions Fund even as the price of oil and gas has increased?
I think given that, the fund is now in place and that we have new rules around how to apply to the fund, it makes sense to continue that fund for the next year in order to achieve further reductions. But looking past that, we really need to lean on strong regulations to send a signal for companies to start addressing methane.
Place for regulations, and then, as you mentioned, this being an incentive that goes beyond the current regulations that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You had actually mentioned some concerns that you had about the program in your correspondence, and I was wondering, do you feel that the changes that were made to the third intake respond to the concerns that you had raised? Are you satisfied with this third intake?
The changes to the third intake, I think, will address some of those concerns. We would still like to see Natural Resources Canada report out, we've heard the statistic that the fund has so far achieved 4.7 megatons of reductions, but we don't yet know what portion of that 4.7 is actually above and beyond the regulations. So what we need is for the government to show how much of that was incremental to what the regulations would have achieved anyways.
But in respect to the third intake, that's about the stats from the first and the second intake. So now there have been some changes made to the program in the third intake, and different rules being stipulated for the eligibility. When you look at those, do those address the concerns you'd raised?
Yes, the third intake does require applicants to provide information about how their project will surpass regulatory requirements. So, that point is addressed for the third intake.
Great. I don't have very much more time, and so I was hoping from Mr. Kitchen, because you had spoken quite a bit about the innovation that you're putting into place. Maybe if you can give a second to speak to me about how you see the role of regulations and then incentives such as the Emissions Reductions Fund. What do you see as the interplay between those two?
Yes, thank you. I see the regulations playing a role to essentially set the minimum expectation of industries. It's to set the bar of where every producer needs to get to if they aren't there already. Where I see incentives like the ERF coming into play is to reach beyond that, is to go after projects emission reductions that current regulations aren't incentivizing.
Great, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. We're now going to move to Monsieur Simard, and you will have 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've got a quick question for Mr. Colby. I hope he can hear me with the interpretation. In your presentation, you talked about a reform of financial support to fossil fuel, and you referred to certain basic principles. You said there should not be any support for projects aiming to reduce the cost of production, nor should there be support for projects aimed at becoming in compliance with current legislation. I have the impression that the ERF actually fits into the principles that you've described as bad practices in terms of funding fossil fuel. Is that actually your vision?
I think with the improvements that have been made in the third intake, the program comes much more closely into alignment with those principles. So, as has been noted, it's now mandatory for a project to demonstrate that it is going toward the reduction of emissions over and above not just existing, but also pending regulations. So this does satisfy that criterion. As to whether the support from ERF lowers cost of production in the affected operations, that's a tricky accounting question. As far as we can tell, the requirements for extended detailed financial additionality statements from proponents in the third intake will try to mitigate that risk. I think it's a reasonable amount of accommodation toward recognizing the principle as we've laid it out.
Merci. J'aurais peut-être une...
Thank you. I've got a quick question to Mr. Kitchen. Can you hear me as well with the interpretation? So I listened to your presentation about carbon sequestration. Several people have told me when we carried out a study here on hydrogen that carbon sequestration techniques were not fully developed, that we were perhaps still at the R&D phase. Now, my colleague, Mr. Maguire, was asking you whether a reduction of taxes for carbon capture would be useful for your area of activity. And if I look at the ERF, right away, it makes me think of something else, namely the oil and gas sector isn't profitable. If you don't have the support from the federal government, then the products that you're trying to market that are low carbon are not profitable. So am I understanding this correctly? Would you not be capable by yourselves of actually reducing CO2 in the oil and gas sector? Do you absolutely need the federal government support?
I think there are emission reduction activities and projects that are profitable in different ways, and they have varying abatement costs. I've seen from in the range of $10 to $20 per ton, all the way up to $300 per ton to reduce emissions. I believe that while the economy has been stronger and is recovering, as we've seen with commodity prices, there is still limited capital to go around. So while projects may be economic, the first focus for emission reductions is to ensure that we are achieving and exceeding established regulatory requirements and other regulations that have already been announced for the horizon. And then we need to look at other opportunities as well.
Je vais peut-être essayer d'être plus clair.
Well, perhaps I'll try and be a bit clearer. There's a basic principle in economy, which is being competitive. That means that our production costs have to be lower than the sales costs when we sell our products. Now, it seems that you're not able by yourselves to meet the environmental regulations. It seems that you need the support of the government. That's what seems to come out of the ERF. And that's what my colleague said earlier when he said there needs to be a tax reduction for carbon capture purposes. That means in terms of the market, you're not capable of reducing the carbon footprint of the oil and gas sector without actually getting funding from the government. So could you perhaps just give me a yes or no answer, please?
To the topic of carbon capture, that is not an area within my expertise, so I cannot speak to it in detail. What I can say is I do understand that technology is very expensive to install and operate, and it's the carbon capture processing in particular that do require government incentives to help get across the line.
Donc, les risques sont assurés par l'État.
So the risks have to be borne by the state. That's what I've taken away from that.
All right, that takes us to the end of that round. And for the final 6-minute panel, we have Mr. Angus.
Well, thank you. I'd like to start off just asking a question, a general question with the Pembina Institute. People I've spoken with in the industry say it's eminently possible to get to net zero with methane. We're talking about something that is really a planet killer. I would think if I was the head of an oil company, I'd be out front saying we're going to deal with methane. We've got drones, we've got AI, we've got commercially feasible technology. Is it possible to make a commitment to get to zero on methane?
I would say we've seen evidence that it's possible to get very close to zero, to virtually eliminate. Zero is always a hard thing to get to, but certainly addressing methane emissions is, as you said, it's very cost effective. We have the technology, it's commercially available, it's currently being used by Canadian companies, and we can get very close to zero.
Okay. I noticed in your letter to Minister Wilkinson in December, you stated that the federal government is on track to miss the commitments it's already made. Is that accurate?
The indication we have is that they're not on track. And, the government released a progress report in late December, but that report really didn't take into account the updated numbers. And so we really still don't have a sense whether we are on track. But as I mentioned, the indications so far from these scientific studies are that we're not on track.
Yeah, I guess for me, this is my frustration, is that if we all agreed that this is a planet killer, that it is doable to fix this. The Prime Minister made very strong commitments in Paris, and then he made much stronger commitments in COP26. And the Environment Commissioner stated, what is the point of making more dramatic promises if you can't meet the targets? So in terms of the targets that we have, is it possible through the use of regulation to say this is what has to be met, this has to be met over 5 years, 6 years, 10 years? How much can we do through regulation?
Absolutely. We can meet the targets that we have in place for 2025 and 2030 using regulations.
Thank you for that. I mean, I ask this because I come from a mining town. 5 minutes from my house is the most beautiful lake you'll ever see. I go to it every day. It has been completely poisoned. Maybe another 100 years before it's not poisoned, because it was once considered okay to just dump cyanide and mercury. And we have regulations to stop that. And I know, God, the mining companies howled in outrage that they had to do it, but our waters and our lakes are protected. So I want to turn now, Mr. Cosby, in terms of the issue of subsidies, because the Environment Commissioner was very concerned that this program had been used as a fossil fuel subsidy, and he said that in terms of getting to where we need to go, using programs that are not verifiable that we're actually going to get there are actually putting us in the wrong direction. What do you have to say in terms of this? We've been told that under the Liberal government, there's been $100 billion in subsidies in the last 5 years to the oil and gas sector, and emissions have risen. Are we getting where we need to go by just giving more money without strings attached?
Pardon, Monsieur le Président, on a un petit problème.
Sorry, there's a problem with the interpretation. I don't want to cut off Jarly, but there is a problem with the interpretation not coming through.
Reason that I've stopped the clock for you, and we'll just check with interpretation and get things back up and running.
C'est revenu, merci.
It's come back, thank you.
Back to you, Mr. Angus.
So, in response to the honourable member's question, yes, subsidies to the oil and gas sector in general are taking us in the wrong direction. They're putting a foot on the accelerator as we head toward the cliff instead of the brake. On a more nuanced level, when we think about what that means in terms of the $100 billion that have been given out, it matters what the purpose of the subsidy was. So in terms of judging the effectiveness, if it's a job creator, let's judge the effectiveness of job creation. But for goodness sakes, let's find, and this is at the heart of our principles, let's find a way to support sectors such that we are not increasing production, lowering production costs, and making more viable an industry that we know doesn't have a future in Canada past 2030. If that is the case, the more we support that sector, the more we risk stranding assets, the more we risk dislocating painfully workers and communities that are dependent on those sectors. So subsidies that continue to make those sectors viable and increase production in those sectors are clearly taking us in the wrong direction.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to just close on that, because to me, it is super important that we are investing in the energy producing regions of our country, because again, coming from mining country, I have seen on just transitions and the brutalities. We have enormous expertise, we have enormous skill, and we have enormous opportunity, yet it seems if we're just going to be dumping money without accountability mechanisms and without real standards, we are leaving our workforce and our industries in a very difficult position, because the International Energy Agency talks about the threat of stranded assets if we don't start this transition. Would you support investments where we could actually say, we are going to work with the energy sector, we're going to work with the West, and we're going to make sure that we create a new economy?
Absolutely. So you see a whole raft of innovative activity in Alberta, for example, on what they call bitumen beyond combustion, looking for markets for Alberta's natural resources and expertise in finance and project management, at taking bitumen and converting it to something that doesn't involve burning it, does not involve climate change, making it into carbon fiber, making it into asphalt. You see the same kind of energy and innovation trying this in areas like geothermal energy, a renewable form of energy, but which involves many of the same technologies and skills. That kind of investment is crucial, I think, if we're going to meet the target of getting to net zero. It's also crucial in diversifying the economies of oil and gas dependent communities and regions to create the kind of just transition that you rightly say we need.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. We're now going to go into our second round with 5 minutes for questions, and up first we have Ms. Goodrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm very proud to be the Member of Parliament for Fort McMurray Cold Lake. As you guys are aware, an oil producing region within our country. And I wanted to start out by asking a question to Mr. Kitching. As you are also based in Alberta, a little bit further south than I am, I'm just wondering how familiar you are with the Alberta government's Technology and Innovation Emission Reduction Program, otherwise known as the TIER program.
Thank you. I'm very familiar with that program.
All right, fantastic. So it basically encourages innovation in reducing greenhouse gases. And I was just wondering if you could speak to where you see some of the best practices are from that program and how you think the federal government could apply some of those best practices to its approach to greenhouse gas emissions and our industries.
Yes, there are numerous ways in which the TIER program is structured quite well. And the federal government programs do follow a number of them quite similarly. TIER does provide standards for quantifying emissions and associated emission reductions as well for projects that participate in the credit and offset programs in place. And both the TIER program and federal government emissions programs, they all do follow the World Resource Institute's GHG protocol as their overarching methodology for quantification.
Fantastic. And so do you think that there are any strengths from the TIER program specifically that could be applied to future federal government programs to help in finding the innovation within our industries?
Yes, I do. The TIER program has been, I believe, instrumental in promoting the development of new technologies. The penalties paid by large emitters into that program have been redirected into targeted funding initiatives for the development of new technologies from all ranges of TRL levels. And I believe we wouldn't be where we are today without that investment of those funds.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I know as someone that comes from Alberta, I know the story is often that we are just an oil reliant area and that we don't care about the environment. And I know coming from Northern Alberta, I think a lot of people across Canada, unfortunately, have those same assumptions. As you were explaining some of the successes you guys have had with the carbon capture and storage, it really highlighted the fact that there is a lot of innovation happening within this industry. And you highlighted earlier on that this particular program helped you reach beyond current regulations in capturing the methane emissions. And so I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit further to that, because I believe you were cut off as you were explaining that piece.
Oh, absolutely. So the project that we executed to transport previously flared natural gas for processing and to the market, that the 2020 slightly above their emissions limit under the provincial methane regulations. And it was the Saskatchewan provincial methane regulations are structured to focus on both venting and flaring, which is quite unique in this space. Alberta and federal methane regulations and BC focus specifically on methane, on venting. And so High Rock Resources had extremely minimal venting, and it was the flare volumes that was putting it slightly over the limit. And of the total estimated reductions, I believe from the numbers I was able to see, and again, this was, we only acquired this company a few months ago, it was roughly 1/4 of the emission reductions would get it to the company within the provincial limits, and the remainder would be attributable to the ERF funding.
Wonderful, thank you. And I believe I might have, there's a red card, so thanks.
Yeah, sorry that it took you right to the end of it. We'll, let's see, where are we now? We'll go to Ms. Jones for her 5 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chair. And hi, guest. I want to thank you for your presentations today. I found they were very informative. So I come from Eastern Canada. My riding is in Labrador and Newfoundland and Labrador. So very highly dependent economy on natural resources. And like every other Canadian, you know, we want to get to climate transition and we want to do it with minimal impact on jobs and the economy in our province, just like the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan. So I certainly understand where my colleagues are coming from. But, you know, as the minister said in his opening remarks, you know, we have to do what we need to accelerate climate change. And of course, we know that that goes beyond regulation and just a regulatory process, but it also includes incentive-driven programs. It includes new technology and investments. It includes innovation. And, you know, that's what I'm hearing from each of you today, and how this program in emissions reduction has helped you do some of that transition in your part of the country and in the businesses that you're in. You know, with the report from the Commissioner of the Environment and Sustainable Development, I mean, there were some really good recommendations in there. I just wish that they would have taken that report a step further and looked at the businesses that received the funding and the work that you're doing and how it is having a broader impact on reducing methane in Canada, but also creating a very innovative workforce and very technically skilled businesses in a field where we're going to be crying out for people as we continue to move through this transition. So I guess I have many questions, but I'm going to try and narrow it down to this one, because I really believe that the ERF is a necessary program. And while there's lots of room for improvement, it is incentives, not just regulations, that is going to help Canadians transition without harsh mitigation. And I think as a government, we have to be cognizant of that as well. So why don't I start with you, Mr. Kitchen, because I was very interested in the fact that you said, even with the project that you inherited when you bought out the company, High Rock Resources, you were still able to help landowners, help 19 third-party companies. You were able to support jobs of local residents that would have disappeared. And not only that, you reduced millions of tons of methane. Why don't you tell me who these people are? How did you retain those jobs? How did you keep those you know, those 19 companies supported in this process? That's what I'm really interested in. And how much methane, you know, did you subquest under the program? And, you know, are we moving in the right direction here in the third phase? And is this a program that we could tweak to really help the oil and gas sector transition in a different way, building on skill, innovation, and still being able to reduce methane?
Yes, thank you. There were a number of questions in there. I will do my best to answer all of them for you. So yes, this was a $1.4 million project. Unfortunately, I don't have the information in front of me to know all of the different 19 service companies that we directly supported. For us and for the $1.4 million and the portion that was supplemented by the ERF program, all of that money flowed right through our company out to those service companies and landowners. None of that was used to pay for any salaries of Whitecap employees or bonuses or anything like that. And so 100% of that went out to local communities, individuals, and companies. Overall, the project did eliminate an estimated 36,500 tons of emission reductions. And these reductions, we are measuring them with custody level, custody grade meters on the project, so that we can accurately determine exactly how what emissions were captured and reduced as a result of this program. And we do have reporting obligations to Natural Resources Canada with this data so that at the end of the 12 months, they can document exactly what the reduction was in comparison to what the estimate was.
Sorry, my microphone was off. Mr. Gorski, if there's time, I'd like to hear your response as well.
You know what, we're right at the end of
Je
time.
pense qu'il y avait plus de temps.
I think we're out of time, no?
Yeah,
Est-ce qu'il me reste 2 minutes?
Do I have 2 minutes still, Chair? I think yes.
We're at 5:28.
28, oui.
So
Yes, 20.
Je vais avoir une petite question.
Yes, I've just got a quick question from Mr. Gorky.
And then we'll
Merci.
wrap up.
Merci.
Thank you very much.
Okay. What's your point of order?
Well, if you're going to give my colleague the block his 2 minutes, but then you're going to not give it to me, I don't think that that's fair.
Okay, would you rather go the extra 2 minutes
We'll
or
go
stop
2 minutes,
now?
and I think it's fair if we're going to finish off a round.
Everybody good to finish
Thank
off the
you.
round?
OK.
Okay.
Parfait.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. I've got a quick question because I want Charlie to have time to express themselves as well. Now, you've said that you've made recommendations to Natural Resources, Mr. Kitchen, and you've said that the ERF had met some of its objectives, but that doesn't necessarily line up, Mr. Cosby, with what was said by the Commissioner of the Environment for a simple reason, because I think if we want to reduce methane, the first thing we have to do is to not increase production of oil and gas. And in the Commissioner report, it was said that over 2/3 of the projects, 27 out of 40, thought they were going to have an increase in their production levels. So I don't see how we can have achieved the targets of the programme if we've actually got an increase in oil and gas production, which is accompanied by an increase in methane. So can you please explain that subtlety to me, Mr. Cosby?
Sorry. So I think the objectives of the ERF, as I understand them, and I'm not here to apologize for the ERF or support it in some blanket form, but I think the objectives were to decrease methane emissions. And so I'm judging it on its effectiveness at doing that. The covered operations may well have increased their...
Monsieur Cosby, la question, c'est...
Sorry, Mr. Cosby, I was actually putting the question to Mr. Gorski from the Pembina Institute. Sorry about that. The interpreter apologizes. It was hard to catch the exact name.
So we'll go to Mr. Gorski if you have a...
Vous êtes en sourdine, je crois.
I think you're on mute.
On mute there. To follow up on what Mr. Cosby was saying, the program was designed to reduce methane emissions. And I don't think there was ample evidence in the Commission's report that the program itself was what led to increased production. And so really we should be judging the program about whether it reduced methane emissions above and beyond the regulations. And the information we've seen so far is that over 97% of the funds went to eliminating methane, which is more than the regulations require.
Okay, thanks. We're going to stop there and go over to Mr. Angus for his last couple of minutes.
Thank you, and I want to congratulate you, Chair, on being such an excellent and fair chair. And in light of that, I'm going to invite my colleague next to me to take my question.
Thank you. My question is for Mr. Mr. Cosby. Specifically with respect to the additionality that the Commissioner calls out in his report, that if we're going to talk about reducing methane emissions, they need to be net new emissions above and beyond what would have already happened. And so, Mr. Cosby, if you could just restate for the record, investing more funds that last time around weren't proven to be additional to what would have already happened as compared to increasing regulations, which is a more effective way to reduce methane?
As I said, the ideal solution is strong regulations. Then you don't have to worry about additionality. You don't have to worry about the lines of causation that run from your funding to emissions reductions. The reductions happen. In the absence of those strong regulations, then we see a role for a program like ERF. But of course, there are risks that it will go to funding projects which would have happened anyway, or supporting reductions that would have been taken to comply with existing regulations. We see that the third intake has, in our view, made brave attempts to deal with those two risks, and I think done so in a way that meets the reasonable standard of expectations.
Thank you to the chair for your fairness and to my colleague for the chance to get a question in. Appreciate that, and would again articulate the need to invest funds in the just transition for workers. Thank you.
Great, thank
and
you, everybody.
just a sort of point of order, Chair, before we end, I believe this is the end of our meetings, which I think were excellent. Will we be able to have time in maybe one of the upcoming meetings for 10-minute committee business just to talk about the report?
Yeah, so the plan is that after the meeting on Monday, we're going to have a 1-hour subcommittee meeting to actually have a discussion at that group and see where we want to go. I was also going to send an email off to each of the members of the subcommittee to get some thoughts to bring to that meeting. So yeah, Monday we'll be talking about that. Before we conclude, I also wanted to say that for the next meeting on Monday, we're going to begin our next study, which is a study of greenhouse gas emissions cap for the oil and gas sector. And witnesses have all been confirmed. The notice of meeting has been posted, and all of you should have seen that. I would like to thank the witnesses today, Mr. Cosby from International Institute for Sustainable Development, from Pembina Institute, Mr. Severson Baker and Mr. Gorski, and Whitecap Resources, Mr. Kitchen. Your testimony has been very interesting and useful. And with that, I'd like to thank all the members for the good questions today. Stay safe out there. Have a great rest of the week, and we will see you on Monday.